It's a new Congress, yes it is. And I got 3 game-changing words for the blue wave in 2020. Automatic voter registration. It's the J Porks Podcast, exclusively on East Coast Radio. Mile journey begins with one step. Progressives took that step on November 6th. The journey's not over, but we took a step in the right direction.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Did you see New York 11 elected a Democrat? New York 11 is Staten Island, the most Trumpian place in New York City. Elected a Democrat. Don't try to tell me it wasn't a wave. Robert Mueller isn't the only person investigating Trump now. We have the House Intel Committee is now chaired by Adam Schiff, and they have subpoena power. And he will use it. And he will get to the bottom of this, like he's been trying to do for the last 2 years, and Devin Nunes has been stymieing him. Devin Nunes is no longer the chairman. The midnight runs to the White House are over. I made a promise to the listeners of East Coast Radio that if the Democrats did not mess up November, that if November 6th went our way, that we would have a little fun here on East Coast Radio. And if you stay tuned, I promise you this. Along with our fighting fascism and trying to save democracy, we will have a little fun. Because we earned it. Keep it locked to East Coast Radio. Remember, we got Dies in Your House at the end of the week. We got the J Porks Podcast at the beginning of the week. Every week, East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Get us on Patreon, patreon.com/JPorks, and follow us on Twitter at East Coast Radio. Let's punch fascism in the face. One podcast at a time.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived. Representing Staten Island. Staten Island was no joke.
Hey yo! What is the word, peeps? Welcome back in to another action-packed edition of the J Porks Podcast, exclusively on East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. What is the word, peeps? I am J Porks, with me as always on the other side of the glass, making sure this is a well-oiled podcast machine. Every week is the ever-popular Nobody, helping out and that is Dead Sarah with Un-American on the intro, and I'm pretty sure I kept it under the minute and 15 seconds I am allotted to keep it under by the standards and practices and, you know, rules and regulations of YouTube and the music business. But I'm sure if you know, listen to that song. It's called Un-American. Like, the members of Dead Sarah could listen to my podcast and understand that I'm with them 100% there, and I obviously I don't make any money from the pod, so I'm not, you know, there's no reason to take it down. I've actually only been taken down once. I played Eminem, I think. I played like the whole song. It was bad. You know, like, Shady Records owns this. It's like, oh shit, it's whack. So what goes on, peeps? I have a little scatterbrain first half of the podcast here. Honestly, too much coffee. I made some iced coffee, and, you know, like drinking beer with a straw. Stuff hits you faster. So, we got a lot of things to get to. The government is still shut down. Trump wants a wall. Not getting a wall. A wall doesn't work. Most of the drugs don't come through the border. Actually, a lot of the drugs don't come through the border, the southern border. You know, if you want to look for where the actual drugs are coming from, you might want to ask yourself why the U.S. government is involved in so many meaningless wars in the Middle East. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about impeaching this motherfucker. Yeah, that's right. So the congresswoman said, let's impeach them. We're going to impeach the motherfucker. She said the words motherfucker. Yes, I just said it a couple of times. I know I'm trying to curse less on the podcast, but it's a quote. Now, for anybody, for any member of the media to care about this is absolutely ridiculous. When you have it's only okay for Billy Bush and Donald Trump to talk like that. I mean, this guy said, you know, shithole countries. I mean, there's grab him by the puss. There's so many things. And you're going to get mad at this incoming congresswoman who let an MF bomb drop? When in all actuality, you know, Kanye West dropped one in the Oval Office when he was there, remember? Remember that craziness? Crazy Kanye, crazy eyes. If Kanye West was on the block, you'd call him Crazy Eyes, you know? Crazy Eyes Kanye in the Oval Office dropped several MF bombs and N bombs and whatever, you know, and not one person cared. It's 2019. You know, it was victory speech. And listen, that's the divided Democratic base, not the divided Democratic base, but like the new Congress, the 116th Congress, which hopefully is a number that we're going to remember. The 116th Congress, there are some members who were thrusted into office by constituents who put them there for one reason and one reason only: to stop Trump and to get him removed from office. But there are also swing district Democrats who picked up seats basically playing to the Republicans. Max Rose, talking to you, who didn't vote for Pelosi. Are you going to go to her, you know, did you go to her inauguration or whatever it is? Were you there? Were you one of the people booing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? This is the portion of the podcast where we talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's wardrobe. Where we talk about, you know, her being a woman and what block she's from. And, you know, dance videos in college. That's what we're supposed to talk about, right? Are those things important? Oh, right, they're not. You know what's important? A new Green Deal. A Green New Deal, whatever they're calling it. They can hash out the details. Here's the point is that AOC wants to save the earth with, you know, recycling and climate change stuff. Let's let her rock that. That's fine. You know, that's not interfering with me.
but I turn on the news and I see some video of her in college. It's literally, it's not like they caught her on video dancing. They were doing some project for a class, and they danced like in the Breakfast Club. Oh God. What is the obsession? Is it like, is AOC the new Pelosi? Because they know that the Pelosi line's getting old, so they gotta find someone else to attack. Why don't you let her serve in office a couple of days? And then I'm sure you guys can find some, like, actual things to nitpick about. But, the whole, that jacket doesn't look like someone who's struggling. And, oh, she borrowed a dress to, for a photo op. It's expensive. What about the middle class? Hey, listen. Pretty soon, she's a congresswoman. Pretty soon, she's going to have a voting record. And that's what she'll be judged on. Okay? How she looks, what she did in college, what block she grew up on. These are things that aren't important. Hate is going to hate. And I'll just quote her. Don't hate me, 'cause you ain't me. Facts. Facts. I understand that, like, she's a heavily backed, like, Bernie Sanders congresswoman. Like, she's a Bernie-crat, kind of. But, she stood by Pelosi. Bernie Sanders wouldn't have voted for Pelosi if he was in the House of Representatives. I don't care what he says on television now. Anyhow, okay. Speaking of Congress, I had to look at my notes. I have notes now. I have like a little pad, and I write things. Because when I write the notes on my phone, it doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't, like, I don't remember to go check. Or if I go open the notes thing, I'd rather just go to Twitter and see my liked tweets and then see the order in which I want to talk about things. Pelosi's the new speaker. Again, two-time Speaker of the House, holder of the gavel. No, but, so you got some new Democrats elected because their constituents want them to remove Trump from office. And you got other Democrats who are elected because they kind of, leaned a little more middle, a little more conservative in a swing district. And maybe their constituents aren't really big on impeachment. Independents, well, we'll get into the poll in a second. First, let's just say this. It is a conundrum where do what's right or please the constituents. Abide by the rule of law or appease your constituents. I think that the Democrats, Congress in general, Democrats, Republicans, there is no choice in the matter now. There is no question that there have been high crimes and misdemeanors committed. They have been committed without question. Abuse of power without question. If you want to say collusion's not a crime, yada. All right, I don't really care. Conspiracy is. And, treason is. I can't stress enough that Trump's first national security advisor was scolded by a judge, and the judge actually asked the prosecutors why they weren't charging him with treason. This is his first national security advisor, the guy that is going to advise him on what to do with what country and why. The judge a judge in open court asked, or it said was surprised that Mike Flynn wasn't getting charged with treason. Okay? Making money off the presidency without question. these are all, crimes. These are all things that you get impeached for. And everyone always says, Nixon didn't get impeached for the Watergate break-in. He got impeached for the cover-up. And that is correct. Ding, ding, ding. Whoever said that, and whoever is everybody, you're right. That is correct. And that's why we have to remember that firing James Comey, even though he has the right to do so, unless there's an ongoing investigation into him and people surrounding him, and the reason for firing him was to stop that from continuing. Well, Jay, how would you know what his intent was when he fired? Because he told Lester Holt on national television. That's why. And you know what? I think he wants to get impeached. He asked Pelosi in the Oval Office over the weekend. He said, you guys can use this shutdown for impeachment. Who says that? That's like going to the cops and say, hey, you can use this against me as a charge. Pelosi was like, we don't want to impeach you. We're not looking to impeach you. Because honestly, nobody is ever looking to impeach anybody. It's not a thing you want to do. It's not a thing where after impeachment is over, people are usually, happy about the state of their country. They're not. Ish is corrupt when people get impeached. Now, the Newt Gingrich-led Bill Clinton fellatio impeachment is complete bullcrap. And we should not even discuss that when discussing whether impeachment should be brought or shouldn't be brought to this presidency in this stage of the game. That was a political stunt which was drummed up by years of Newt Gingrich doing everything in his power to stop Bill Clinton and the Democrats from moving this country forward in a progressive manner. And that's all that was. It was just so tight that Bush didn't get that second term. Bush won. R.I.P. to the founder of the crack epidemic. So there was a poll taken. I saw it on... Oh, it was hardball because Steve Kornacki is filling in, and of course it was a poll because it was Steve Kornacki and he needed any reason to show numbers on the screen. He likes math. Of independent voters polled who are in favor of impeachment, there was a poll that had 37% are in favor and 54 or something are not. Now, obviously, those numbers are like, oh wow, Jay, well I guess, two-thirds of, almost two-thirds of America doesn't want to impeach. Can you believe that? Well, not two-thirds, but two-thirds of people that identify as independents, as independent voters. And let me just say this, those people, they're independent. So if they're claiming to be independent, then they're claiming to be open to things. So those people are just waiting for Robert Mueller to drop some more stuff. Like, once the full report comes out and you actually see, and Robert Mueller actually spells out to the American people what went down, or he spells it out to Adam Schiff and Schiff spells it out to us, somehow it's getting out to us. Then we're going to see, trust me, we'll see a swing in that. See, right now, people like me, and the people that I list in the thread count, like the people on Twitter, like who I follow, and, all these people that are knee deep in cable news 24 hours a day, and like, well, not, that's me, but the people that are reporting like stuff and trusted sources that I trust, and like when I'm watching television, people that explain the Russia thing over and over again, like people who've read Dirty Rubles, an introduction to Trump Russia, like we all know this. We're just waiting for everybody else to catch up. And, you know, once some more people get indicted, and Mueller just needs to, he's crossing all his I's, dotting all his T's, you know, the opposite of that, but you know what I mean. And trust me, I believe that when all is said and done, if you took a poll of everybody in America right now, there is about at least 75% of America that is totally okay with the removal of this wannabe despot, orange cunt monkey, from the office. We're just waiting on Mueller. This week I started a new gig, so I wasn't watching cable news all day, but I did was a quiet week for Robert Mueller. That usually doesn't mean good things for Trump. Trump said he's going to keep the government shut down for months, maybe years. Years. Do you understand how crazy that is? The government shut down for years. Government shutdowns are not good for anybody. There is never a time where a political party benefits from a government shutdown. Nobody wants it. I don't know why these Republicans have not jumped ship. And I know, you know, people are going to tell me, well, Jay, Mitt Romney came out with that op-ed. Mitt Romney ain't about that life. We're going to look at the voting record over the next 2 years, and you will see Mitt Romney voting along with Trump, you know, and the rest of the GOP with everything that comes on the Senate floor. Just like people say, oh, Jeff Flake really stood up for something. He didn't stand up for shit. He voted with Trump like 9.5 out of 10 times. Check the receipts. There are voting records. They're not confidential. Just like you can see that Bernie Sanders voted on that crime bill a bunch of times. Oh, shit. Oh, man, I really wanted to start off. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Why am I talking like this? Why did I not stop already? Okay, anyway. I just realized that I wanted to kick off the pod with talking about Elizabeth Warren 2020. Not kick off the pod, but I just wanted to... Because listen, there was a blue wave 2018, and we got another blue wave is coming in 2020 to keep the country progressing. And that means we're going to get a new president. And who's it going to be? Well, I will just raise my hand and say that whoever is on the Democratic ticket at the end of the day is going to get my vote, because I am not an idiot. So I'm just going to say that right now. I am not somebody that likes to disrupt the election system. I am a Democrat who votes for Democrats. So I'm just going to say that. But let's double back to Warren. Elizabeth Warren is the first, besides like Juan Castro, whatever, to announce that she's got an exploratory committee into running for president. She's obviously going to run for president. People are talking about the Native American test. You know, the ancestry thing where she got her thing tested and it said that she was of ancestral, she did have Native American ancestors. And like people are talking, they're like, that's going to hurt her in the primary. You know, that's like something. And it's, you know what it reminds me of? Emails. You want to know why it reminds me of emails? because it doesn't matter. It's not a thing that matters. Was it stupid? Yeah. Was it a bad tactical decision? Yes. Does it have anything to do with the way Elizabeth Warren would run the country? Absolutely not. And we need to get over this. This is 2016 syndrome all over again. If you keep talking about the percentage in which Elizabeth Warren has Native American in her. It's not important. It's not anything that has to do with her governing. Okay? Just like Hillary Clinton's emails had nothing to do with her governing. Look where we are now, assholes. Emails. No, assholes. But I also like that she was the first to announce. The first real Democrat to announce. The first person running on the Democratic side to announce. Because she's all about taking down big banks and giving everyone health care and free college, right? And legalizing, she's legalizing marijuana. That's Bernie Sanders' lane. She clicks all the Bernie Sanders boxes. So, what's the difference between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders? Well, one's a Democrat. And listen, guys, if you want to tell me, if you want to come to me, if you want to @JPorks on Twitter, and if you want to tell me that, Jay, maybe you shouldn't hate Bernie that much because he'd be a good Veep. I'm totally down with him being Veep. There's a lot of interesting things the Democrats can do at Veep. But the problem is that with running and all that stuff, and if by a miracle we get out of this and we get a Democratic presidential win in 2020 in both the Electoral College and the popular vote, the problem is when we're building a cabinet, we're going to lose like 10 senators. Because what in case, you want to make Kamala Harris Attorney General if she doesn't get out of the primary? What in case you want to bring on, let's say you want to bring on Sanders to run, what is it? He could have Steve, not Secretary of Treasury, but something where he stops rich people from getting money. Like whatever cabinet position that is. He could do labor. He could do something. Like there's going to be a lot of positions to be filled and we're going to lose a lot of senators. But first things first, everyone needs to get out of the 2016 syndrome. And by that I mean focus on governing, look at people's voting records, and then decide who you want to vote for. But 2020 is not going to be about which candidate you're feeling. 2020 is about stopping the inevitable rise of fascism in this nation. And we have to stop it. That's what 2020 is about. 2020 is ending this reign of terror. And if you don't know what fascism is, what is fascism?
The noun fascism is usually defined as a governmental system led by a dictator having complete power, forcibly suppressing opposition and criticism, regimenting all industry, commerce, etc., and emphasizing an aggressive nationalism and often racism.
Aggressive nationalism and often racism. Now that is most certainly going on in this country with the rise of hate crimes over the past 2 years. People are more outward with their racism. And you know how there's a calm before a storm? Well, this might be just the opposite. This might be the storm before the calm. These crazy people, we might be able to... They're out of the woodwork now. Everyone's got their Confederate flag. If you got a Confederate flag, you got it proud. And you're telling people where you stand, where maybe 10 years ago, if you were racist, you kept that to yourself on the outside. Now they're out there. Let's flush them out. Dox them. All right. Moving back to immigration when we come back after this. Hey yo, J-Porks here, back to recording my own commercials. And here's the deal. You may have heard me complaining on today's podcast or a previous podcast about suffering through a summer of unemployment. Well, we have a fix for that, and it is called Patreon. That's right. Least Coast Radio now has a Patreon page, and all you need to do is go to patreon.com/jporks, and there are 3 tiers that you can subscribe to, 3 tiers you can join to become a member of Least Coast Radio, of the Least Coast Radio community, of Porks Nation. You'll even have a chance to pick the name and all that stuff. And we are not offering just thank yous and shout-outs. We got bonus content. There is even a tier where you are able to talk to me on the phone every week. And we will go over what is happening in our country. And you could personally talk to me, J Pork. Personal interactions. There's a tier where there's a group. You can join a group, and you could affect where the podcast goes that week. I need a community. I need help. Not necessarily money, but I need people to be helping me out. So therefore, that's why I created a Least Coast Radio Patreon. Not to be confused with a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter. This is not me with my handout. I have bonus content. Bonus content to offer you. I have tons of it. I have tons of time, and I want to give it to you. All you need to do is join us on Patreon. Become a Patreon. Patreon.com/jporks. Look for the Least Coast Radio Patreon page. You'll see me. You'll see me with a microphone and dies in your house next to the name. You'll see that. So just go hit us on Patreon. You will get a thank you. I will know that, and you will have a lot to do with what goes down on the J Porks podcast and everything concerned with Least Coast Radio. It's going to be a big year for us. 2018. Let's get it done. So you wanted to shut down the government. So the reason to shut down the government, the reason Trump gives to shut down the government is because of the dangerousness of the border and how we need the steel slats of hatred or the wall or the fence or whatever barrier he wants to build that Nancy Pelosi isn't giving him any money for because he's a clown. But basically, the quote, terrorists trying to infiltrate across, an ex-U.S. official said that terrorists trying to infiltrate the U.S. across the southern border was more of a theoretical vulnerability than an actual one. Theoretical means didn't happen. And for more on this, we've got Julia Ainsley has a piece with NBC News that we are going to read right now. I play you Doink's music in the background because it is a clown show. Washington. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said Friday that Customs and Border Protection picked up nearly 4,000 known or suspected terrorists last year, quote, that came across our southern border. But in fact, the figure she seems to be citing is based on 2017 data, not 2018, and refers to stops made by the Department of Homeland Security across the globe, mainly at airports. In fiscal 2017, the latest year for which data is available, according to the agency and the White House's own briefing sheet, the Department of Homeland Security prevented nearly 4,000 known or suspected terrorists from, quote, traveling or entering the United States. According to Justice Department public records, two former counterterrorism officials, no immigrant has been arrested at the southwest border on terrorism charges in recent years. The White House did not respond to a comment about Sanders' statement. Ahead of Trump's meeting Friday with congressional leaders to negotiate the end of the government shutdown, the White House issued briefing materials that stated, quote, 3,775 known or suspected terrorists were prevented from traveling or entering the U.S. by Department of Homeland Security in fiscal year 2017. Nowhere did the briefing materials state that the known or suspected terrorists were stopped at the southern border. Ned Price, who served on President Barack Obama's National Security Council, said that many of those 3,775 were stopped simply because their name matches that of someone on a terrorist watch list, which have grown in recent years, and not because they pose a threat. Quote, so-called terrorist watch lists are an important tool in our national security. Arsenal, but they are far from a foolproof in large part because of their sheer size. The number of people on such lists ballooned in the recent years after 9/11, with some reports indicating that more than 1 million names had been associated with suspected terrorist activity. That's why false positives, including the case of crossings at our southern border, are commonplace. Even the late Ted Kennedy was registered on one such list when attempting to fly, presumably because the commonality of his name, Price said. Nick Rasmussen, the former director of the National Counterterrorism Center from 2014-2017, said, during my tenure, the threats of terrorists trying to infiltrate the United States across our southern border was much more of a theoretical vulnerability than an actual one. It simply isn't the case that terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda to get would-be terrorists into the country. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nielsen said at a press conference at the White House on Friday that more than 3,000 immigrants have been stopped at the southwest border over an unspecified period because they are special interest aliens. DHS classifies nearly all immigrants crossing the border who is a nation of a country outside of the Western Hemisphere as a special interest alien, according to DHS reports. And a spokeswoman for the National Counterterrorism Center did not respond to request for comment. Again, it's Julia Ainsley on NBC News with a little fact check on immigrants crossing the border. That was a smooth takedown of the music there, but nice. That's how we're gonna win awards, by those smooth transitions like that. So, I saw this earlier today, this morning on one of the morning shows. Do you know that when they say this many terrorists, or this many would-be terrorists, that they're actually referring to airports all across the world? It's not the southern border. In fact, according to NBC News, they have not arrested a terrorist in years at the border. Years. So again, the danger and how the border needs to, how the wall or the steel slats need to go up. For what? To stop terrorism? That's not where terrorism is coming from. There is no... These are counterintelligence, career counterintelligence people telling reporters it was more of a theoretical vulnerability than an actual one. Theoretical. And Trump is over there in the Rose Garden. And listen, I turn the guy off when he comes on, but I had on MSNBC yesterday, Friday, and I just wanted to, I thought they'd cut away from him eventually. I was just waiting for them to cut away from him. But I heard part of his speech about jobs, and he's talking about jobs. Did you see the job numbers? That's not why we're here. How do you start off a conversation? How do you, all right, we're going to discuss the government shutdown and how people aren't getting paid. And we're going to do that by telling you new jobs numbers. Do you think it's odd that the military at the border, protecting the border, probably won't get paid during the shutdown? The shutdown that is happening because they had to go to the southern border. It's a cyclical circle. And listen, I mean, 2 years ago, this was not normal. We are beyond not normal now. And we need to quote, one of my new favorite congresswomen, we need to impeach this motherfucker. We can't. Just listen to him talk for 10 straight minutes, and you tell me that anything that doofus says actually makes sense, even if you're a hateful person. Even if you're somebody that really hates brown people. You can't listen to that guy and not think he's, got Alzheimer's. He's lost it. I'm not even talking about his hatred right now for everything not white. That's terrible. But I'm not even I'm talking about the fitness. And some people weren't built for that. This guy was never a politician. He's always ran his own business. I don't care if you're George Steinbrenner. You've only owned the Yankees. Oh, he's a businessman. He's going to run the country like a business. Yeah, how'd that work out? Did it work out well? Is the stock market doing good? Did those taxes trickle down to you? They didn't? Oh. And now we're shooting tear gas at kids at the border? During Christmas? We killed 2 kids on Christmas? And this shutdown continues. Meanwhile, Trump and Pence employees, like people that work in the cabinet, who work for the staff, they're getting raises. True story. No need to fact check that. Didn't even deny it. They asked him about it and he said, you got to talk to them about that. But they're not in control. No employee is in control of getting a raise besides like working hard. When I was working at Pizza Hut, the boss never came up to me and said, so, you interested in a raise? That never happened. I had to wait. And when I got that 50-cent raise, I knew I earned it because they only gave out one 50-cent raise in the store every 6 months. Like, a couple people will get 10 cents, a couple people will get 5 cents, some people will get 15. I got 50. Still proud of that. So anytime you want the government shut down, anytime the government is shut down over immigration, think of a couple of things here. One, immigration's always been a thing. It's always been a thing that America has had an issue with, taking people who are immigrants and, making the process not that hard for them to become citizens. That's, for years, America has had this issue where we make it hard for people. We make it hard for non-white people to come into the country. This has always been a thing. We've always had to deal with immigration reform in this country. And, obviously, Republicans aren't going to be the best ones to do that, and neither is Trump, so we have a lot to do there. But at the same time, you have to remember how we got here. And we got here, we took the land. We came here, we didn't have papers, we didn't have documents, and we came here, and now look at the Native Americans. I mean, Saturday mornings, every 6 weeks, me and my dad drive out to the Indian reservation to get cigarettes for cheap for my mom, and we have to drive 88 miles to the Indian reservation. Like, they used to have the whole country. Now we have to drive 88 miles to get there in either direction. They used to have the whole country. Now they have reservations. We took that from them. And in turn, we did not pay that forward. Yeah, okay, all right. After World War II, you let some people in. I get it, and my grandparents appreciate that. They didn't have a place to go. And they're happy that they got to come to America. But don't tell me that if my grandparents were brown that they would have had an easy time getting into America. Don't tell me that. That's a lie. Concrete wall, steel slats. None of that is needed. And this shutdown, the Democrats did a slick move. the Democrats' bill that they just passed in the House, the first bill they passed was to reopen the government. It's the exact bill that the Senate Republicans brought forth to the floor and voted on. Actually, the whole Senate voted on it 100-0 to say yes to it. Then it went to the House. I think this is 2 weeks ago. The Senate passed the bill, sent it to the House. The House was going to pass it until Paul Ryan met with Trump, and then Paul Ryan was like, oh yeah, we're not going to bring it. He's not going to sign it. Okay. Remember, the senators voted 100-0 for that. So all 100 senators on the same page. You've seen the Kavanaugh hearings. You got all of those guys on the same page. Every senator on the same page. Crazy. And then now, Mitch McConnell won't bring this. So Nancy Pelosi brought basically the same bill up. They passed it in the House, and now Pelosi's sending it to the Senate. But McConnell's not going to bring the bill for a vote. Even though in 2013 he claimed that a government shutdown would never happen again, and that a 2-week paid vacation is not a conservative policy. That's what he said in 2013 after Ted Cruz lit the world on fire with Tea Party and, that stuff. It was ACA, that's what it was, right? Got to shut down. People aren't getting paid. People have died in national parks because there's nobody working there. People have died because of the shutdown. People couldn't go see the Christmas tree. The war on Christmas is waged by Republicans. Who would have thought? Now, again, I'm not saying that we don't need to do something at the border. Like, immigration courts are closed now because the government is shut down because of immigration. We could use a better system, and we got to figure it out. But, listen, like they say at the end of Black Panther, we're better for building bridges, not building barriers. And that's not what the human race was not about building bridges. Not about building barriers. It was about building bridges. Making connections to people. Not worrying about only yourself and how this affects you. That is a selfish mentality, and that's a mentality that gets America where it is now. That's a mentality that leads to there being more homeless people on the street than empty vacant houses taken by the bank in America. That's the kind of mentality that leads to. That's the mentality that leads to, oh, well, why would we make these overseas when we can have a factory in America when in actuality, we can't afford to pay the American worker decent wages to work in that factory, so therefore we outsource the job and get that American another job, a job where that they can do. A job that they can get paid a decent wage for. Not a job where in another country it would cost 2 cents an hour to pay somebody. This is the world we live in. And if you want to say, Jay, I don't like it at all, we should go around the country and shut down all these... I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. There should not be, factories of children overseas, sweatshop type things. Shouldn't be a thing. I don't like it. But these are the days of our lives. And the grains of the sand in the hourglass, or whatever the hell that saying is, we need to do better. We've done a better job than I thought we would at not falling straight into a fascist state immediately. We've prevailed a little more than I thought we would so far. But now we really have to buckle down This is going to be a big year, and we have to be ready for whatever and whenever it happens. So, I mean, me, right now, if you got a rally you need me to go to, I'll make a sign. If there's something I could do to sign up, someone point me in that direction. I'm just here to help. Because I do not want to create the mentality of being selfish. Because, wanna know why? Because then younger people than me are going to be selfish as well. And it's about setting the example. You don't always have to, you set the example, most people will follow. Some people don't. But if you set an example and you like Derek Jeter when he used to play, you never heard about you heard about it afterwards, but you never heard about Derek. You never saw pictures of Derek Jeter in the club, with 2 models on each arm. That you never saw that picture. You heard the stories. You didn't see the pictures. It's sick and twisted. So the border, we need to figure out a way to get these people in our country, help them, see what they need, get them their papers, and then they can help contribute to society. Because as you know, Gallup had a poll, 76% of Americans, 65% Republicans, 75% of total Americans believe that immigration into the United States is a good thing for the United States. 76%. 65% GOP in a GOP-only poll. It's over 50% in the GOP poll. Steel slats is just to try to keep the base. That's all it is. And listen, we know. All the American people know this. And I don't see any, listen, the guy could run, but I don't know how anybody can go cast a vote for this clown a second time. Stranger things have happened. But even though I feel he's so unelectable right now, I would still really love for in 2020 for him to no longer be an option. Removal. That's what we're fighting for. Resist, remove, and fight for recreational. Those are the three R's that we end the podcast on every week. We say resist, we say remove, and we fight for recreational. You know how I love my resist hoodie, and I'm always resisting. You know how I love my recreational. But do you notice that the word remove is always in there? Remove. There must be removal. The cleanse could begin once we clean out the infection. The infection is turning orange. Get a little more when we come back after this. Hey, yo! Jay Porks here, recording my own commercials as per usual. But I am here to tell you about going to patreon.com/JPorks, and you have the opportunity to help support Least Coast Radio by becoming a Least Coast Radio head. How do you do that, you say? Well, there are 3 different tiers to choose from, where you can find yourself bonus content, bonus features from the Jay Porks podcast, from Dies in Your House, from all things Least Coast Radio. Now, what are those features? Well, they're bonus shows. They're getting shows early. They're getting exclusive artwork mailed to the address of your choosing monthly. You can interact with all the hosts here on Least Coast Radio. You can get shout-outs on the podcast, behind the scenes stuff. That's on Dies in Your House and the Jay Porks podcast. You get them both here on Least Coast Radio. Dies in Your House is usually the primer at the end of the week. The Jay Porks podcast is the long show. What we do at the beginning of the week to get you going, to take in everything that happened. But I need some help. And how you can help Least Coast Radio is by following us on Twitter at Least Coast Radio, going to patreon.com/jporks, becoming a Patreon, becoming a Least Coast Radio head. And, you know, if you don't want to do any of those things, you can smash that subscribe button on iTunes or YouTube. And, you know, you can, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt to share the podcast with your friends. So keep it locked to Least Coast Radio for the least heard voices. We're here fighting fascism, saving democracy, but we're also going to have a little fun. Keep it locked. And we're back here on the J Porks Podcast. Episode, I want to say 255. You know, I don't keep track of the numbers, really. The numbers aren't important to me as the witty titles. Anyhow, that was a poorly timed break because I have something related to immigration that continues here. And I just want to say this. I mean, hypocrisy is crazy, right? I mean, the first hypocrisy is, you know, being American and then getting mad at other people for coming to your country when in fact that's what your country was founded on. There are those core values. But also, let's keep in mind to when this clown, this orange despot wannabe cunt monkey, came down the escalator, exactly like he did in that Simpsons episode. And he came down the escalator, and he was talking about immigrants coming through the border, and they were murderers and rapists, drug dealers and gang members. They weren't their best people. They weren't sending their best people. This is what the orange despot wannabe cunt monkey said. As all this was happening, in as late as, well, actually the incident is in the summer of 2016, the Secret Service, I guess when this was like, when he was close to locking up the nomination, the Secret Service stopped by Trump's Bedminster Country Club in New Jersey. Right over here in the Dirty Jersey. Close near me. My side of town. And the Secret Service came, and they were asking the kitchen workers to write down their names and like social security numbers. One problem. These kitchen workers, well, this one that was approached, did not have a social security number because they were, wait for it, an undocumented immigrant. Now you're probably thinking, oh, I'm not surprised, Jay. You know, they can sneak their way into any job. No. They went to management and told management that they were having this problem. That, oh, listen, I'm undocumented. There are a couple of other people on payroll who are undocumented. Like, so this is going to be a problem if the Secret Service shows up again. And the country club, Trump's country club, actually made sure that their names were removed from the list of employees. So they falsified documents. And they made sure that these undocumented immigrants were not found out by the Secret Service, by ICE. You know, it's funny how ICE never raided Trump's country club. It's weird. So think about that. Think about how the government is shut down over a vanity, fake, pretend piece of, you know, steel or concrete that means nothing. And then think about, this guy isn't only lying like as a bullshitter just to bullshit. This dude is so deep in his own lies that he can't see. Like, you can present these two facts to him, And listen, I'm not saying that, the manager of this hotel, of this specific golf club, called, Don Jr. or somebody personally working on the campaign at the time and let them know that there was an undocumented immigrant there. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that Trump in general has no problem with employing undocumented immigrants and paying them less money than, a citizen, a citizen of the United States. That's a common practice for him. Look at the hotels. The Bedminster Country Club, that's hard to say. Bedminster. That country club, that story's in the New York Times. I just saw the lawyer on Chris Hayes. He represents at least 2 women who are, I don't think they're suing. They just want their story out there. I guess he represents them because they're going to get sued eventually for this. Because, that's what happens. That's what Trump does. He sues people and then pulls the lawsuits back. But in all seriousness, think about it. I mean, how many people own restaurants? Like I talk about it all the time. I used to work at a place, Primo Pizza here on Staten Island, owned by a racist fireman named John. He's a racist fuck. He used to call me a dirty Jew and stuff. But he's uneducated. That's, that's how it is. People that are hateful like that, people that are like that are uneducated. And that's just the only way it is. But in our conversations, he would be all Republican, he'd be all support Trump, and he'd be all screw the immigrants. And at the same time, like, he's got a kitchen full of immigrants who make less than minimum wage because that's how he could afford to keep his business running. And he's not the only. There are lots of business owners that voted for the guy that wants to deport their entire kitchen, that wants to make them hire Americans to wash dishes at $15 an hour. I'm liberal as everything, but I understand that if every restaurant has to pay the person who's washing dishes $15, then there's not going to be many restaurants. This is, again, the immigration reform. We have to figure this out. And I'm hoping that in the most diverse Congress, the 116th, I'm hoping that that's a number we remember. I'm hoping that this diverse Congress finds a way to at least start the path towards getting immigration reform right. The government is shut down because of a wall, while the Trump golf course in New Jersey hides undocumented immigrants from the U.S. government. These are things that are facts. And it's not Mexican, Guatemalan, like came through the caravan style. It's okay when it's happening over there. It's just not okay anywhere else. And that's what doesn't make sense to me. Listen up, liberals. We got to stick together on this, on everything, because we have a rough 2 years ahead of us. We might have to roll the dice and not impeach. You might have to roll the dice and let this guy just burn himself down. You might need to let that happen. I don't know yet. We have to do some investigations. Investigations take a long time. They can get stymied by people in power. This is what fascism is about. And that's why we have to stop it. And that's why every podcast, it's only about one thing: fighting fascism. Making sure this doesn't happen again. Because most of my family was killed when the last time fascism rose. And the only reason that my family, that I'm here today in America, is because America, in the 40s, allowed my grandparents to come in as refugees. I don't know if they were labeled refugees at that point. Anyhow, that's my story. I'm getting out of here. But before I go, let me give you the list of websites you need to go to help keep me in business. There is, first of all, ContentConfessions.com. That's where you're going to get all your live music, news and reviews for the fans by the fans. I'll give you a little spoiler. Once a month, the website goes down for like a day. And that's because I don't pay my bills on time. Note to future people who will be living with me. I cannot be in charge of the bills. Also, I need you guys to go to patreon.com/jporks and become a Least Coast Radiohead. That's right. Sign up for the tiers. Check it out. There are different levels of stuff. You can get yourself some bonus content. You get yourself some personalized artwork. Get yourself shout outs on the podcast, input on the podcast. Talk to me on the phone. Anything else we can think of. We can have like town hall type stuff. You can make suggestions. Tell me what you want. The way you can get that better responses from me to that on the podcast is by going to patreon.com/jporks and becoming a Least Coast Radiohead. I'm not unemployed anymore. As you heard on Dies in Your House, and if you have not listened to Dies in Your House from Friday, January 4th, I highly suggest you go to Least Coast Radio, the Least Coast Radio channel right now, wherever you're listening to this, and please listen to that. It is hilarious, but I'm working a couple of hours a week, making a couple of bucks, so I'm not sitting here shilling Patreon trying to, make dough. I want to put more content out there, and I just want to see where the demand is for it. So there is a difference. I'm never going to pay my bills on patreon.com/jporks. But you could help my self-esteem and help me think that more people are listening than they actually are. And make this thing bigger than it is. Because fighting fascism is not something that should be taken lightly. Also go to leastcoastradio.weebly.com. Let me know how you like that, because I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that. I'm getting off GoDaddy. I'm getting off jporks.com. We're changing. Everything's changing. We're changing things. I mean, slowly but surely, we're getting out of 2006 JPorks, and we're moving into, 2019 Least Coast Radio, Dies in Your House, JPorks podcast, stuff like that. We're evolving, we're expanding. My whole expanse, I cannot see. Formulate infinity. Okay. What else? Bing, bang, boom. Alright, that's it. And follow me on Twitter at jporks. That's where I have the most fun. If you guys, really, that's where I engage with people the most. Please, at jporks on Twitter, at Least Coast Radio on Twitter. I'm always trying to, talk to people, get on threads. I'm always watching MSNBC, and I'm always tweeting along with the hashtags of whatever shows I'm watching. When Morning Joe's not liberal enough for me because they're not liberals, and when Velshi and Rule are having a moment, it's very cute. When Katie Turr references fish. When Nicole Wallace just comes and lays the hammer down. There's a lot of stuff going on, during the day. And I like to tweet. And sometimes I tweet at 2, 3 in the morning. I tweet very early in the morning. So sometimes you don't find me. So I mean, you should get at me and you should respond to me and I'll like get back to you and like, you know, we'll be friends, because that's what this is all about. Like I'm my best friends in the whole world I've met on the internet. Like if I was having a big party right now and I could invite, you know, everybody I knew, you know, 9 out of 10 of those people would be people I met on the internet. So let's, you know, the world is getting smaller, and let's get together, be progressive. All right, I'm getting up on out of here. Till next week, folks. Least Coast Radio, for the least heard voices. Resist, remove, and fight for recreational. Late.